What happens when Dwayne Johnson walks onto the set of The View? And instead of the usual laughter, applause, and polished smiles, the air turns electric, tense, almost dangerous. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to Stage View, hit that like button, and drop a comment below. Because this story, it's one you won't want to miss. The lights are already blazing inside the studio. The familiar theme music fades as the camera glides across the audience. Smiling faces, coffee mugs in hand, whispers of excitement. Today's guest isn't just anyone. It's The Rock, a global icon, a man who built his legacy on charisma, control, and an unshakable presence. But something feels off. Backstage, Dwayne Johnson stands just out of sight. His jaw tightens ever so slightly, a detail most wouldn't notice, but it's there. His usual warm grin? Not quite reaching his eyes today. His team hovers nearby, exchanging glances they try to hide. They know this isn't just another interview. On the other side of the curtain, seated at the panel, Whoopi Goldberg leans back in her chair, calm, composed, almost unreadable. She's been in this industry long enough to recognize tension before it explodes. Her fingers tap lightly against the table, her eyes scanning the cue cards, but her mind is clearly somewhere else. There's history here. Unspoken. Unresolved. The producer's voice cuts through the air. We're live in 5, 4, 3. Applause erupts as the segment begins. Please welcome Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. The audience jumps to their feet. Cheers. Whistles. The kind of energy that usually fuels him. But as he steps onto the stage, something shifts. He smiles, of course he does. He's a professional. He hugs the co-hosts, exchanges polite greetings. But when his eyes meet Whoopi's, it lingers a second too long. Not hostile. Not friendly. Just heavy. He takes his seat. Whoopi smiles, tilting her head slightly. Well, look who decided to join us today. Her tone is light, but there's an edge beneath it. Subtle. Sharp. Dwayne chuckles softly. Wouldn't miss it. The audience laughs. It feels normal. Almost. Another host jumps in, trying to ease the flow. You've been everywhere lately, movies, business ventures, even rumors about politics. How do you keep up with it all? Dwayne leans forward, slipping into his usual rhythm. It's about discipline. It's about waking up every day and control. Whoopi cuts in suddenly. The room stills. Dwayne pauses. Just for a fraction of a second. But it's enough. He turns toward her slowly. Control? Whoopi nods, her expression calm but pointed. That's what people say about you. That everything is calculated. Every move. Every word. Every smile. A ripple moves through the audience. It's not loud, but it's there. Dwayne lets out a small breath, leaning back in his chair. Well, I like to think I'm intentional. Intentional? Whoopi repeats, almost tasting the word. That's one way to put it. The other hosts shift in their seats. This isn't the script. This isn't the light, promotional interview they were expecting. Dwayne's smile tightens slightly. Is there something you're getting at? Whoopi doesn't answer immediately. She studies him. The way he holds himself. The way he chooses his words. Finally, she speaks. There's been talk, she says. About how you handle criticism. About how you respond when people don't play along. The tension sharpens. Dwayne's fingers clasp together. I respond like anyone else would. I listen. I grow. Whoopi raises an eyebrow. Do you? A murmur spreads across the audience. One of the co-hosts quickly jumps in, laughing nervously. Okay, let's not get too serious. Tell us about your latest film. But Dwayne lifts a hand slightly. No, he says quietly. It's okay. He turns fully toward Whoopi now. Let's talk about it. The audience leans in. Whoopi nods slowly, almost approving. All right. Dwayne's voice is calm, but there's a weight behind it now. If you've got something to say, say it. For a moment, no one breathes. Whoopi places her hands on the table, fingers interlocked. All right, she repeats. Let's talk about authenticity. The word lands like a spark in dry grass. Dwayne tilts his head slightly. Authenticity. Yes, Whoopi says. Because there's a difference between being authentic and being perceived as authentic. The silence deepens. Dwayne's expression doesn't crack, but something shifts behind his eyes. And you think I'm what? He asks. Whoopi meets his gaze directly. I think you've built a brand so strong, people don't know where the brand ends and the person begins. A collective gasp ripples through the audience. The other hosts are frozen now, caught between shock and fascination. Dwayne exhales slowly, his chest rising and falling. That's an interesting perspective. It's an honest one, Whoopi replies. The air feels heavier, thicker. Dwayne leans forward again, his voice lowering slightly. You know, Whoopi, I've spent my entire life working to be the best version of myself. For my family, for my fans, for the people who look up to me. And that's admirable, Whoopi says. But it also makes it very easy to avoid showing the parts of yourself that aren't perfect. The audience is silent now. Completely. Dwayne's jaw tightens again. This time, it's more visible. You think I'm hiding something? Whoopi doesn't hesitate. I think everyone is. That lands harder than anything before. A beat passes. Then another. Dwayne looks out at the audience, hundreds of eyes locked onto him. Waiting. Then he looks back at Whoopi. And what about you? He asks quietly. You've been in this industry a long time. You think you've shown every part of yourself. Whoopi smiles faintly. No. Then why expect it from me? The question hangs in the air. Whoopi leans back slightly, considering him. Because you've built your image on being everything. Strong, honest, relatable, unbreakable. Dwayne nods slowly. And you think that's not real? I think, Whoopi says carefully, it's incomplete. The word echoes. Incomplete. For the first time, Dwayne doesn't respond immediately. There's a flicker, just a flicker, of something raw behind his composure. The audience feels it. Everyone feels it. And suddenly, this isn't just an interview anymore. It's something else. Something deeper. Something far more dangerous. Dwayne leans back in his chair again, his fingers tapping lightly against his knee. He's thinking, calculating, but also feeling. You know, he begins slowly. People see what they want to see. They see the highlight reel. The success. The wins. He pauses. But they don't see the failures. The doubts. The nights where you're not sure if you're enough. The room softens just slightly. Whoopi watches him closely. Not interrupting this time. Dwayne continues, his voice quieter now. So when you say I'm incomplete, maybe you're right. Maybe we all are. There's a shift in the energy. But it doesn't last long. Because Whoopi leans forward again. Yes, she says. But most people don't build an empire pretending otherwise. The tension snaps back instantly. The audience gasps again, louder this time. Dwayne's eyes narrow just slightly. And now, the confrontation is no longer subtle. It's just getting started. The air doesn't just feel tense now. It feels charged, like something invisible is crackling between them, waiting for the slightest spark to ignite it. Dwayne Johnson doesn't speak immediately. He sits there, shoulders squared, hands clasped, his presence still commanding, but no longer effortless. The easy charm that usually fills every room he enters has been replaced by something far more controlled. Measured. Guarded. Across from him, Whoopi Goldberg doesn't look away. The silence stretches just long enough to become uncomfortable. Then, Dwayne exhales through his nose, slow and deliberate. Pretending, he repeats, his voice calm, but with a quiet edge now. That's a strong word. Whoopi tilts her head slightly. So is empire. A ripple of nervous laughter flickers through the audience and dies almost instantly. One of the co-hosts shifts in her seat, forcing a smile. Okay, I think we're, getting into some deep territory here. But no one's listening to her. Not the audience. Not Dwayne. And definitely not Whoopi. Dwayne leans forward again, resting his forearms on the table. His voice lowers just a notch, enough to draw everyone in. You said something earlier, he begins, eyes locked on Whoopi. About people not knowing where the brand ends and the person begins. Whoopi nods once. I did. Dwayne's lips press together briefly before he continues. Let me ask you something. When you sit here every day on The View, do you think people are seeing the full you? Whoopi doesn't flinch. No. Exactly, Dwayne says, his voice sharpening just slightly. So why is it a problem when I choose what parts of myself to share? Whoopi leans in now, mirroring his posture. Because you don't present it as a choice, she says. You present it as truth. The words land harder than anything before. A low murmur spreads through the audience. Dwayne's gaze flickers, just for a second, but he recovers quickly. It is truth, he replies. Your truth, Whoopi counters. Dwayne nods slowly. That's all anyone can offer. Whoopi's eyes narrow slightly. Not when you've built a platform that influences millions. There it is. The real issue. The room feels smaller now. Tighter. Dwayne sits back, one hand rubbing his chin as he considers her words. So what are you saying? He asks. That I have some kind of responsibility to show every flaw? Every mistake? Every failure. Whoopi doesn't hesitate. If you're going to position yourself as real, yeah. A sharp intake of breath from somewhere in the audience. One of the hosts tries again to steer things away. Maybe we should talk about your journey, because you've been very open about your struggles in the past. I have, Dwayne says, cutting in not harshly but firmly. He turns back to Whoopi. I've talked about depression, about failure, about losing everything and starting over. That's not exactly a highlight reel. Whoopi nods slowly. You've talked about it, yes. But you've framed it. Dwayne's brow furrows. Framed it, packaged it, Whoopi clarifies. Made it digestible, inspirational, safe. The word safe hangs in the air like a challenge. Dwayne lets out a short laugh, but there's no humor in it. So now being inspirational is a problem? No, Whoopi says calmly. Being untouchable is. That hits. Hard. The audience reacts audibly this time, gasps, whispers, shifting in seats. Dwayne's posture stiffens. Untouchable? You've created an image, Whoopi continues, her voice steady, unwavering, where nothing sticks to you. No controversy. No real consequences. Everything just rolls off. Dwayne shakes his head slightly. That's not true. Isn't it? Whoopi presses. The tension spikes again. Dwayne leans forward, his voice dropping lower, more intense now. You think I haven't faced consequences? You think I haven't made mistakes? I think, Whoopi says, choosing her words carefully, that when you do, they disappear very quickly. A beat. Then another. Dwayne's jaw tightens again, more visibly this time. His fingers tap once against the table, sharp, controlled. You know, he says slowly, it's interesting hearing this from you. Whoopi raises an eyebrow. Oh, yeah, Dwayne continues. Because you've built a career on saying exactly what you think. No filter. No apologies. That's right, Whoopi says. And yet, Dwayne adds, you're sitting here questioning how I choose to present myself. Whoopi doesn't back down. Because you don't present it as a choice. Dwayne exhales, leaning back again, his patience thinning, but still intact. So what would you have me do? He asks. Come out here and just unload everything? Every doubt, every mistake, every moment I've ever fallen short. Whoopi watches him carefully. Yes, she says simply. The audience erupts, not in applause, not in laughter, but in pure, stunned reaction. Dwayne blinks once. Just once. You really believe that? He asks. I do, Whoopi replies. Because people don't connect to perfection. They connect to truth. Dwayne's eyes narrow slightly. And you think I'm not telling the truth? I think, Whoopi says, her voice softening just a fraction. You're telling a version of it. That lands differently. Not as an attack, but as something deeper. Dwayne doesn't respond immediately this time. Instead, he looks down for a moment, just a moment, his fingers interlacing, his breathing steadying. When he looks back up, there's something different in his expression. Still controlled. Still strong. But heavier. You know what's funny? He says quietly. Whoopi doesn't answer. Dwayne continues. People always say they want honesty. Raw, unfiltered honesty. He pauses. But the moment you give it to them, it makes them uncomfortable. The room is silent again. Whoopi studies him. Try us. Another ripple through the audience. Dwayne lets out a slow breath, his gaze drifting briefly across the crowd. Hundreds of eyes locked onto him, waiting. Waiting for him to either deflect or deliver. He looks back at Whoopi. You want honesty? He says. Yes, she replies. Dwayne nods once. All right. The single word feels like a turning point. The energy in the room shifts, again, but this time it's sharper. More focused. Like everyone senses what's coming next isn't just part of the show anymore. It's something real. Dwayne leans forward, his elbows resting on the table, his hands clasped together. His voice lowers, not for effect, but because whatever he's about to say carries weight. You're right about one thing, he begins. Whoopi's expression doesn't change, but her eyes sharpen. I have built something, Dwayne continues. A career. A brand. A reputation. He pauses. And yeah, I protect it. A murmur spreads through the audience. Not shocked, but intrigued. Dwayne's gaze doesn't waver now. Because I know what it's like to have nothing, he says. To lose everything. To feel like you're one step away from disappearing. The room softens again, but only slightly. Whoopi listens, silent now. And when you've been there, Dwayne continues, you learn very quickly that the world doesn't owe you anything. Not forgiveness. Not understanding. Not second chances. His voice tightens just a little. So yeah, I choose what I show. I choose what I say. Because every word, every moment, every decision, it matters. He leans back slightly. That's not pretending, he says. That's surviving. The audience reacts, some nodding, some whispering, some clearly moved. But Whoopi, she doesn't look convinced. Surviving, she repeats softly. Or controlling? The question cuts through everything. Dwayne's eyes lock onto hers again. And this time, there's no smile, no softness, just intensity, and the sense that whatever comes next is going to push this confrontation past the point of no return. The word lingers in the air like a blade that hasn't quite fallen yet. Controlling. For a moment, no one moves. The audience, the hosts, even the crew behind the cameras, everyone feels it. That invisible line that's just been crossed. Dwayne Johnson doesn't blink. His gaze stays locked on Whoopi Goldberg, steady, unwavering. But there's something new behind it now. Not just intensity. Something closer to exposure. You keep using that word, he says quietly. Control. Whoopi doesn't flinch. Because it keeps showing up. A faint murmur rolls through the crowd. Dwayne leans back slowly in his chair, exhaling through his nose, his fingers pressing together like he's holding something in. Not anger. No, not exactly. Something heavier. You know what control really is? He says, his voice calm but weighted. No one answers. It's waking up every day and deciding not to fall apart, he continues. It's choosing discipline when everything in you wants to quit. It's holding yourself together when nobody's there to do it for you. His eyes flick briefly toward the audience, then back to Whoopi. That's not manipulation, he adds. That's survival. Whoopi tilts her head slightly, listening, but not backing down. And when that survival becomes an image, she asks. When it becomes something people can't question? They can question it, Dwayne replies immediately. You are. A small ripple of reaction breaks through the silence. Whoopi nods. Yes. And look how uncomfortable it's making everyone. The camera pans across the audience, some leaning forward, others shifting in their seats, a few whispering to each other like they're watching something they weren't supposed to see. Dwayne notices it too. He lets out a quiet breath, then rests his hands flat on the table. You think I'm uncomfortable? He asks. Whoopi studies him. Aren't you? There's a pause. A real one. And for the first time since he walked onto the set of The View, Dwayne doesn't answer right away. Instead, he looks down. Just briefly. But it's enough. When he looks back up, something has shifted again. Not broken, but opened. Yeah, he says. The single word lands heavier than anything else he's said. The audience reacts instantly. Soft gasps, a few stunned expressions, the kind of quiet that isn't empty, but full. Whoopi doesn't smile. She doesn't gloat. She just watches him more closely now. Good, she says. Because that's real. Dwayne nods slowly, almost to himself. You want real, he says. Yes, Whoopi answers. Dwayne leans forward again, but this time there's no performance in it. No calculated pacing. His voice doesn't drop for effect. It just settles. All right, he says. Here's real. The room tightens. You talk about control like it's some kind of mask, he continues. Like I built this image to hide behind it. He pauses, his jaw tightening slightly. But you know what it really is? Whoopi doesn't interrupt. It's armor. The word echoes. Dwayne's eyes don't leave hers now. Because when I first came into this business, I wasn't the guy you see now. I wasn't the brand. I wasn't the franchise. A faint, almost bitter smile flickers across his face. I was the guy people doubted. The guy they didn't take seriously. The guy who got told he wasn't enough, over and over again. The audience is completely silent now. Even the co-hosts don't move. And every time that happened, Dwayne continues, I had a choice. I could let it break me, or I could build something stronger. His voice tightens again, but he doesn't stop. So yeah, I built something. I built discipline. I built consistency. I built a version of myself that couldn't be ignored. He leans back slightly, his hands gripping the edge of the table now. And along the way, that version became what people expect to see. A beat. And once people expect something from you, he adds, it's not so easy to take it away. That lands differently. Not defensive. Not confrontational. Just honest. Whoopi watches him, her expression softer now, but still searching. So you're saying you're trapped by it? She asks. Dwayne shakes his head slowly. No. He pauses. I'm saying I carry it. Another silence. Heavy. Layered. Whoopi leans forward slightly, her voice quieter now. even when it's not who you are in that moment? Dwayne's eyes flicker again, just a flicker. That's the job, he says. The words hang there, raw, unfiltered. And suddenly, the entire conversation shifts again. Because now it's not about calling him out. It's about understanding what he's been holding in. One of the co-hosts finally speaks, her voice tentative. That sounds exhausting. Dwayne lets out a quiet breath, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. But it doesn't reach his eyes. Sometimes it is, he admits. The audience reacts again, this time softer, almost empathetic. But Whoopi isn't done. She leans back, studying him carefully. Then why keep doing it? She asks. Why keep carrying something that heavy, if it's not always who you are? Dwayne doesn't answer immediately. He looks out at the audience again. This time it's different. He's not scanning them. He's seeing them. Hundreds of people. Different lives. Different struggles. Different expectations. Then he looks back at Whoopi. Because it's not just about me anymore, he says. The conviction in his voice is unmistakable. When you reach a certain point, when people start looking at you like you're more than just a person, you don't get to just be anymore. A murmur spreads through the room. You become something else, he continues. A symbol. An example. Sometimes even an escape for people who need one. His voice softens slightly. And if showing up a certain way, if being strong, consistent, dependable, gives someone out there a reason to keep going. He pauses. Then yeah, he finishes quietly. I'll carry that. The audience reacts, this time with scattered applause, emotional murmurs, a few people visibly moved. But Whoopi doesn't clap. She nods slowly, acknowledging what he said, but her eyes remain sharp. That's admirable, she says. It really is. Dwayne nods once. Thank you. But it's also dangerous. The applause dies instantly. Dwayne's expression tightens again. Dangerous? Whoopi leans forward, her voice steady, deliberate. Because the moment you become a symbol, she says, you stop being allowed to fail. The words hit like a shockwave. And when you don't allow yourself to fail publicly, she continues, people start believing failure isn't an option. A heavy silence follows. Dwayne doesn't interrupt. And that, Whoopi adds, is where the problem starts. The audience shifts again, some nodding, others frowning, the tension rebuilding. Dwayne leans back slowly, his fingers tapping once against the arm of his chair. You think I'm setting an unrealistic standard, he says. I think, Whoopi replies, you're setting an incomplete one. There's that word again. Incomplete. This time it lands deeper. Dwayne exhales, his patience thinning, but not snapping. So what would you have me do? He asks again, his voice firmer now. Break down on camera? Show every weakness, every doubt, every moment I don't have it together. Whoopi doesn't hesitate. Yes. The audience reacts louder this time, gasps, a few incredulous laughs, the tension spiking again. Dwayne shakes his head, a faint, disbelieving smile appearing. You really think that's what people need? I think it's what they deserve, Whoopi says. That does it. The last thread of restraint tightens. Dwayne leans forward sharply now, his voice no longer just controlled, but charged. You think people deserve to see me at my worst? He asks. I think people deserve to know you're human, Whoopi fires back. I am human, Dwayne replies, his voice rising slightly, not shouting, but unmistakably intense. Then show it, Whoopi says, her voice cutting through the room. The audience erupts, not in applause, not in laughter, but in pure, stunned noise. The hosts are frozen. The cameras keep rolling. And for a split second, it feels like everything might actually break. Dwayne goes still, completely still. His eyes lock onto Whoopi's. And the energy in the room shifts one final time. Because now, this isn't just a conversation. It's a challenge. And whatever comes next, there's no walking it back. For a moment, it feels like time itself hesitates. The studio, once filled with chatter, applause, and daytime ease, now sits suspended in a silence so thick it almost hums. The cameras are still rolling, the red lights glowing like witnesses that refuse to blink. And at the center of it all, Dwayne Johnson and Whoopi Goldberg remain locked in a stare that has gone far beyond television. No one moves. No one breathes. And then, Dwayne exhales. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. But it's enough to shift the air. He leans back slowly in his chair, his posture no longer rigid, no longer defensive, just still. His eyes break from Whoopi for the first time in what feels like minutes, drifting downward as if searching for something beneath the surface. When he speaks again, his voice is quieter than before. Not weaker. Just real. You want me to show it, he says. The words are not directed at anyone in particular. Not just Whoopi. Not just the audience. It's as if he's asking himself. Then he looks up again, this time not as a brand, not as a persona, but as a man standing at the edge of something he's spent years holding back. All right, he says. The shift is immediate. Even Whoopi leans back slightly, sensing it. Dwayne places both hands flat on the table. His fingers don't tap this time. They stay still. You talk about being human, he begins. About showing the parts people don't see. A pause. Let me tell you something people don't see. The audience leans in, every eye locked. There are days, he says slowly, when I wake up, and I don't feel like that guy everyone expects. The words fall softly, but they hit harder than anything else he said all day. There are days when I question everything, he continues. Days when the pressure doesn't feel like motivation, it feels like weight. A murmur ripples through the room. Dwayne doesn't stop. When you're seen as strong all the time, people forget you can get tired. They forget you can doubt yourself. They forget you can feel like you're carrying something too heavy. His voice tightens, but he doesn't lose control. And you don't say anything, he adds, because the moment you do, it changes how people see you. Silence. Pure silence. Whoopi watches him now, not as an opponent, not as a challenger, but as someone finally seeing past the armor she's been pushing against. Dwayne exhales again, slower this time. You asked why I don't show everything, he says. That's why. He looks directly at her. Because once you let people see you fall, they don't always help you back up. The words land like truth carved from experience. The audience reacts, some nodding, some visibly emotional, some simply stunned into stillness. Whoopi doesn't interrupt. For the first time, she lets the silence sit. Dwayne leans back slightly, his gaze drifting across the audience again. But now it's different. He's not performing for them. He's sharing with them. But here's the thing, he continues, his voice steadier now. You're not wrong. That catches everyone off guard. Even Whoopi. Dwayne nods once, almost to himself. There's a line, he says, between protecting yourself and hiding. The room tightens again, but this time, it's not tension. It's focus. And maybe, he adds, sometimes I've leaned too far on one side of that line. A quiet wave of reaction moves through the audience. Not shock. Not disbelief. Recognition. Whoopi leans forward slightly, her voice softer than it's been all day. That's all I was asking for. Dwayne meets her eyes again, but now there's no edge, no clash. Just understanding. Yeah, he says quietly. I see that now. A long pause follows. Then something unexpected happens. The audience begins to clap. It starts small, just a few hands, but it grows, spreading across the room until it becomes a steady, powerful wave of applause. Not for drama. Not for conflict. For honesty. For a moment that no one in that room, or watching at home, will forget. One of the co-hosts finally lets out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Well, that just happened. A ripple of soft laughter breaks through the intensity, easing the atmosphere just enough to let people breathe again. But the weight of what just unfolded doesn't disappear. It lingers. Dwayne sits back, quieter now, the tension in his shoulders easing, but not gone. Whoopi watches him for another moment, then nods, once firmly. Respect. Not agreement. Not victory. Respect. The segment moves forward, but nothing feels the same. The questions that follow are lighter, safer, but they don't matter. The real moment has already happened. And everyone knows it, because outside that studio, the world is already reacting. Clips begin to spread within minutes. Headlines form before the show even ends. Dwayne Johnson opens up in heated exchange on The View. Whoopi Goldberg challenges The Rock and gets a surprising response. Social media ignites. Some people praise Whoopi for pushing past the surface, for asking the questions others wouldn't. Others defend Dwayne, calling out the pressure placed on public figures, the impossible standard of being both strong and vulnerable at the same time. And then there are those who focus on something else entirely. That moment. The pause. The shift. The second where a global icon stopped being untouchable and became human. Back in the studio, the cameras finally cut. The red lights fade. The audience begins to stir, voices rising again, but softer now, like they've just witnessed something they're still trying to process. Dwayne stands. So does Whoopi. For a brief second, they face each other without the weight of the broadcast. No cameras. No audience. Just two people who pushed each other to a place neither expected. Then Dwayne extends his hand. Whoopi looks at it, and after a beat, she takes it. A firm shake. No smiles for the cameras. No performance. Just acknowledgement. And maybe a quiet understanding. Because sometimes the most powerful confrontations aren't about winning. They're about revealing something real. And this one, it did exactly that. As Dwayne walks off the set, the energy follows him. Not loud, not explosive, but lingering. Heavy in the best way. Whoopi watches him go for a moment longer before turning back toward the table, her expression thoughtful, reflective. The conversation may be over, but its impact? That's just beginning. And now it's your turn. What did you think about this intense, emotional moment between Dwayne Johnson and Whoopi Goldberg? Was Whoopi right to push for more honesty? Or was Dwayne right to protect what he's built? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more powerful, dramatic stories that pull you right into the moment, make sure you subscribe to Stage View, hit that like button, and share this video with someone who needs to see it. Because sometimes the real story isn't what happens on the surface. It's what finally breaks through underneath.